So we are going to have this workshop called What Do Bi Plus People Want? Some insights from Bisexual Killjoy. So this is very open for all, of course, of Bi Plus people, allies, people who love purples, people who want to reclaim unicorns, and in general, you think we've all heard of them, and you can still hear from them, of course, from a great podcast. So just for some introduction, after we have Bailey Merlin and Jace Rios Rivera. And Bailey Merlin is the author of A Lot of People Live in This House and a BiPlus activist with a background in media and medicine. She is the co-creator of the podcast Bisexual Killjoy and founder of BiPlus Book Gang, an international writers group. They have studied a long time for Harvard Medical within Harvard Medical School and board member and events chair for the Bisexual Resource Center, one of the oldest BiPlus organizations in the world. They have published in literary magazine, Iconifier, literary magazine, Bandit Fiction, Anti-Air Chic, Shantwood magazine, and way, way more. She is based in Boston and lives in an international community with a dynamic cast of humans, a dog, a cat, and a friendly ghost. Of course, please look up and you can find their work at baileymerlin.com. Considering for Jace Rios Rivera, they are currently a sociology PhD student at Boston University. Their work focuses on plurisexual identities, histories, and communities. They already hold a master's degree in women, gender, and sexuality studies. And of course, they work and studied a lot on plurisexual identity from a sociological background, but also bridging scholarship with activism throughout their career. They also the co-host of the famous podcast, The Bisexual Killjoy, and they try to bring academic insights in a way that is an accessible format shared to a broad audience. They have an extensive knowledge of LGBT and BIPLAS specific concerns. So we're really to host with a lot of the experiences and really trying to bring BIPLAS knowledge and experiences to the general public in a way that is accessible. Whereas you are listening to a podcast while doing laundry or while walking in the train, any kind of way, just, it's pretty great to have just great bisexual and bi-plus voices telling us whatever we need to know. So thank you again for being here. And of course, the floor is yours to kill some joys and be awesome.
Thank you so much. We're very excited to be here.
Thank you.
Let me share my screen. All right. Well, welcome back to Bisexual Killjoys, the place where we know bisexuality isn't a phase, it's a phenomenon. I'm Bailey, and this is
Jace.
And we're so excited to be back at this conference where the project actually got its start to talk about what do bi-plus people want, insights from Bisexual Killjoy. Jace, take it away.
So, what exactly is this project and how did it start? Well, Bisexual Killjoy started right here at this conference in 2023. Bailey and I presented on the importance of queering academia through involvement in bi-plus activism. And when we shared with all of you the concept of just to be a bisexual killjoy, you all loved it so much that we just knew we had to make something out of it. So, what exactly is a bisexual killjoy? To be a bisexual killjoy means to be willing to pose and expose the problems in everyday situations by calling out bi erasure, discrimination, and bi oppression. And let me tell you, it took us a really long time to get down to that tiny sentence because Bailey kept harassing me about it. I could give an entire talk on what it means to be and embody the bisexual killjoy spirit. For us, we decided to embark on a journey to embody this precise bisexual killjoy spirit by starting an educational podcast that broke down complex bi-specific topics. We are profound believers in the power of public scholarship, and we knew that bi-plus community needed more accessible, relatable, and funny, I think we're funny, science communicators.
But the podcast itself has grown. Something we were reflecting on this morning is that the Bisexual Killjoy project has been going on for 2 years now. And in March, we'll be celebrating 2 years on the air. And what comes with that, what comes with a project that grows and grows and grows, is you realize that it has to change to meet your audience. So what started as a podcast turned into a blog. We have a Substack right now. And in that Substack, we started writing more. We started sharing our own stories about the intersections of bisexuality and where it lives in other places. We also have an advice column called Give It to Me Bi Plus, which has more submissions than I think either of us would be able to get through the end of time, if we're being really honest about it. A lot of Bi Plus people have questions and they don't have anywhere to ask those questions. So that written component has allowed us to do more outreach to the audience than just the podcast would be, because not everyone enjoys podcasts. We were like, okay, well, with that feedback, let's pivot a little bit. Both of us like to write, both of us like to have our voices heard. So let's just get in there. And honestly, the response has been a lot more than I thought it would be, faster. I like the growth we have had on the Substack has been, and Jace will tell us more about it later, has been greater than I would have expected in like 3 years. So on top of that, recently we've also evolved in the last month to be an online community. And I'm going to let Jace talk about that because it was a great labor of their love. So Jace, please tell us more.
So I am very excited to tell y'all about the online community component. I am so proud that Bisexual Killjoy has grown so much to encompass so much more than just a podcast. Not that the podcast is there's anything just about it. The online community is hosted on Discord. I saw that some of y'all joined. I am so excited about that. And we have a lot of really cool things on there. It is a space for folks to chat, to make friends, to create community, so Bi Plus folks don't feel so alone, since that was something that kept popping up in our inbox and in our Give It To Me Bi submissions. And we also offer a series of events on there every other week. Bi-weekly, we host Spill the Tea episode debrief events where we'll chat with folks about what kind of labor, work, research went into the latest episode. And they have a chance to ask us all their questions in private-ish, non-recorded settings. We also, going to the next slide. We also have some numbers for y'all, for any of the quant folks in the room. These numbers look even better than they did last time when we did our little report. We have 30 published episodes so far, 6 episodes in the bank for this current season that we're in, season 4. Over 25,000 streams, which I am so excited about. These come from all over the world. And we have covered a variety of topics. The Bi Plus 101, we cover the myth of passing privilege, strategies for erasure, are bi people even oppressed? Spoiler alert, yes. Conversations with experts. We have interviewed our very own Ellen Davenport Pleasance here, and her episode is amazing. We cover a few different intersections of bi plusness, and right now we're talking about bi history.
But the thing about the project is, like, yes, we're making all this stuff, and yes, it's very exciting to know that so many people are listening to it. But what really astounded me was the last time we met with you, the United States base was about 70 to 73% of the pie, and now it's down to 61, which means we're beginning to spread out into international spaces. And that's really exciting. Obviously, the UK, Australia, primarily English-speaking countries, and Canada itself is like pretty high percentage of English speaking. But what surprised me is our growing European presence in Germany and France and Switzerland, but also in Brazil. And if we want to get down into it, we are basically on every continent. We really like to think that the penguins are listening in Antarctica, but they're using a VPN to protect their identity so no one knows that they're sentient enough to enjoy Bisexual Killjoy. And something that we're hearing from more of an international audience, and we're considering, okay, well, how do we translate these episodes? How do we become a resource that is available to something outside of English speaking? Jace is a native Spanish speaker, so eventually it would be great to have those translated into Spanish as like the baseline. And I don't know, I wasn't expecting this when we started this project 2 years ago. First, now we're at the point where we go to events and people will come up to us and say, oh my God, I loved the last episode. And you're like, who are you? Hi, so nice to meet you. Who are you? Like, oh, I feel like I know you really well. And I carry you with me on my way to work and this, that, the other. I'm like, that's really cool. But Bailey Merlin, the voice, and Bailey Merlin, the person are two different things. Bailey Merlin, the voice. Thank you for listening. So that's still like, that's an interesting thing that we're navigating right now. But it's so cool to see how far we've come in just 2 years. And Jace, let's scoot this over. Tell us more about growth.
So, as we mentioned before, we now offer the Give It To Me by Advice column. We also offer culture and media commentary. We share our thoughts on what's going on. One of my personal favorite essays covers my take on the whole JoJo Siwa fiasco that happened online. This was a really tough Pride Month. I don't know if y'all also felt it. And I also take some nostalgic views on some of my favorite shows like Bones, and we cover different things about what does it mean to have bi plus representation that we enjoy, and bi plus representation that's really just erasure and the frustration that comes with that. We do also host the episode discussion events in the Discord, and we are really, really passionate about ensuring that the bi plus movement stays alive and has legacy and coherence. So we also offer volunteer and mentorship opportunities for those who want to get involved. And right now we have a small volunteer team, very, very mighty, that has done amazing things so far, like helping us get transcripts of the episodes. So it's all just very exciting, and I'm just very excited to share with you all of these numbers with over 41 published pieces so far, almost 800 gentle readers on our Substack, and over 50 members in our Discord community.
And I do think it's important to highlight the fact that the Substack has been around for less than a year, and that for growth on a blog is really fast paced. And the online community launched at the beginning of September. And to me, just sort of as an organizer and as a community member, it's like, wow, there's a need here. People really, really want to be in these spaces together. And, speaking of the Substack, this readers around the world situation, this pie chart looks almost identical to last year's pie chart for the podcast itself. So I imagine when we see you next year, it will be the like 60% United States and it'll be a little bit more diverse. But even that, I think maybe 6 months, 7 months for the Substack, the way we've been working on it lately, this is really incredible. And I want to give another shout out to our volunteers who have helped us transcribe the episodes so that they can later be translated and some of our pieces to be translated, because we want our work to be a public resource, a public scholarship, so that anyone, someone who has never heard that the bi plus community exists, someone who doesn't know that there's a bi plus history, can read and say, what do you really? Yeah, really. There's all this stuff that we're doing, and you can be a part of it too. So accessibility is really key for us as we continue to grow this project. And that all said, we want to get into what a bi plus people want. And we want you to know, what have we learned in the last year about what bi plus people want. They have very specific desires. They want to know about very specific intersections that Jace will share with you in a minute. But just kind of anecdotally, the last big episode request was bisexuality and neurodiversity, and that intersection. Everybody wants to talk about it. Everybody wants to know more. And it gets into the territory of a little chicken and egg, like, am I bi plus because I'm neurodiverse? Am I neurodiverse because I'm bi plus? And you're like, that's not the conversation we want to have, actually. It's more about, exploring, naming, building resiliency, finding community, the positive power and all of that. And when we were doing the research for this project, Jace found 2 papers about the intersection of bi plusness and neurodiversity by Alex Toft. And if anyone on this call knows Alex Toft personally, from what we can tell, he retired from academia, and I want to find him. I will fly to the UK, where he was last seen publishing, and I will buy him coffee. So this is just, a great desire. And if any of you are doing investigations into this intersection, please email us. We would love to talk more and read papers and discuss and do all the things. But Jace, I really think folks should know what our listeners are interested in.
So far, we have learned that, wow, that's really loud. So far, we have learned that BIPLUS folks are passionately curious about a number of topics, and I don't think that comes across as news. These are a few topics that BIPLUS folks are keen on learning more about. You will notice that we have covered some of these intersections already in our podcast or our blogs. And we have done this to the best of our ability, precisely because there is an evident need for BIPLUS folks to know more about these areas and understand themselves better. But for most of the ones that we have covered and that are here, there is still very limited data and analysis. One of my personal favorite intersections here is being BIPLUS and role playing RPG. So far, this data is totally anecdotal, but folks have seemed very, very keen on, yeah, role playing games have really allowed me to explore my gender, my bisexuality, my other aspects of self, and we are profoundly curious about how we can talk more about this intersection and how we can understand ourselves and each other better in community.
Yeah, I definitely like good. I'm very happy to know that the research is being done about games and things like that because the amount of D&D nerds I know, and honestly, like
Truly.
there are certain flavors of bi plus people, right? Like there's a niche that you fall into, and if you're a gamer, you're a gamer, and then it's like crafts, and then the whole other subsections of bi plus genre. But it's just been I want to see the data. I'm really excited to read these papers and these chapters. And then Jace, tell us some more about how we
Yeah.
know this.
So, how exactly do we know that folks want more information in these areas and at these intersections? We wanted to share with you our main takeaways on how we have learned to identify what it is that BIPLUS people want instead of actively telling us BIPLUS folk what it is that we need. Um, and we have honestly just learned to listen. This podcast has been paradoxically a really great exercise in listening to the BIPLUS community because us bi folks are very eager to share what it is that we want, what out of our communities, how it is that we want to feel. But very often those concerns fall on deaf ears. Nobody does anything about it. So it is really up to us to meet them right there and take them at face value. You say you want more community building events, then let's do that. It's also important to show up and just to put stuff out there. Sometimes we don't know what we want until we get a taste, and Bailey and I continue to be surprised at the attention that specific topics get. Very often they will like do a little tiny blow up with a tons of comments or tons of replies or emails about a specific episode. Be like, I need more about this. I didn't realize how badly I needed this information. And BIPLUS folks are people like everybody else. So we are subject to the influence of trends, the allure of short form content, and the seduction of endless scrolling. Find something that folks enjoy, that you personally enjoy, and give it a BIPLUS twist so that we can feel reflected and more comfortable in telling you what it is that we want. And as always, we're really proud believers in practicing what we preach. We wanted to leave these Killjoy prompts to hear from you what it is, how do you respond to these, and what it is that you would like to see in BIPLUS community building. How have you been showing up for your BIPLUS community in events, groups, or activism so far? How have you been communicating your research findings to the broader BIPLUS community? What kind of public scholarship are you creating, and how do you feel about it? And this is my personal favorite question, this last one. What is an easy answer that you have been overlooking? dreams and goals can be as big as they can be. We can imagine them huge. But day to day actions really don't have to be huge to have an impact. So, what is an easy answer, easy response, easy thing that you can come up with that has been sitting on the sidelines for a little too long? Bailey, you're muted.
I see. Yes. So we want to leave room for questions. So let me just finish it up right here. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of this space and sharing your energy and your expertise with us. I would also really like to acknowledge the work of the conference organizers. Thank you so much. I know this work is hard. It's deeply appreciated. And to keep things alive, like let us know how we can help in the future. And we'd love to continue curating and supporting BIPLUS spaces. You can absolutely continue to follow us, listen to the podcast, visit bisexualkilljoy.com. That's where all the fun is. You can join our Discord. You stream the podcast on literally any podcast streaming service. Follow us on Bisexual Killjoy on Threads and Instagram. Email us, talk to us. Jace dropped all the links. Until we see you next time, keeping a bisexual killjoy.
Stay bisexual
Thank
and
you.
stay strong.
Thank you so much, Jace and Bay. Of course, if you have any question or if you want to raise your hand and ask our presenters directly, that would be very great. Or else I will take the side. Of
We
course,
can
these
also,
are actually, if you could go back to the slide on the prompts,
yeah.
I guess that would be also like a great starting point. Like, what can we do? How can we communicate better? And okay, I don't see any question, but then I will start with something. So, like right now, from your expertise, coming for the fourth season and everything, what suggestion or insights would you provide to someone who's would start maybe a podcast or a media content or a YouTube page? So, from your expertise after this time, like what would you have done differently if you had the expertise? Like let's make like we are some kind of memoir where you could go back in time with some knowledge from your past lives.
Um, Jace, I need to talk about the calendar. I need to talk about the almighty calendar. So the best advice we got, and I think is why we've been successful, was you need to plan out a whole season before you start recording. That will help you stay on a recording cycle. And listeners like consistency. If they know they're going to hear from you from March until June every other week, they'll stick with you. But if you're posting sporadically, it's harder for me to get invested into that. I think the only time this, didn't work out, the benefit was season 2, where we're trying to like corral a bunch of experts at once and trying to get our recording time down. And it just didn't work out that way. So I'd say that you need an editor. You need a audio editor to make it sound really good. People really respond to audio quality, and you want it to be as good as possible so you sound professional and trustworthy. And um, yeah, I think between planning and audio quality, anyone can do anything. Jace, I don't know if you want to add to that.
I mean, I do agree. I think that not something that I would do differently, but definitely a strength that I have allowed myself to recognize instead of cringe at is allowing the podcast to exist imperfectly.
Mm.
If somebody wants to start a YouTube channel, start a blog, anything, it has to exist imperfectly. Um, and our first 2 episodes, Bailey knows this, and our volunteers know this. I cannot listen to our very first 2 episodes. Like, for the love of God, I cannot go back and go through them. But getting those 2 out there was what got Bailey and I on a schedule. We figured out what it is that worked for us, what it is that worked for us as a team, how we could keep doing it moving forward. And we keep getting better and better. And I think that that's really the strength. The same for the Substack. They were a different style when we first started, and now they look a lot more polished. So things need to exist imperfectly before they can be better. I think that probably the one thing that I would do differently is recruit an extra team member to handle all social media, because
If anyone wants to do it, let us know.
Bailey and I have been hot potatoing social media this entire time, and we just need support, please.
I guess like if we have to take back the role-playing game metaphor, which of course there's D&D Pathfinder, but I do urge you to play Monster Hearts by Avery Alder, which is a very queer game, very cool. Of course, you need to know your own strengths and weaknesses to have a balanced party. Not everybody can play fighter, not everybody can be a mage. I guess you have to be kind of balanced on the path. And if you're not really good with social media, of course, at least you can provide all the knowledge. Thank you. Just I wanted to start with that because that's I think the question that most people would be interested in. Regarding like neuroqueerness or neurodiversity and Europlay game, I can confirm. I think like we see that a lot in polyamorous podcasts or also content. Like polyamory is just an excuse to have a regular D&D or board game party of people. And actually, I can confirm it could be a really great. It is a great solution and strategy to have. But what would you say about what's the best thing, like you say, I think about neuroqueerness. Actually, yes, we do have some people in Italy who work or do neuroqueer activism. So where I was lucky enough to know someone who did. But like, what do you think, since you said, oh, what do we need to talk more about? That's what the audience said, but I would like to, in the closure, like, what would you like to see, like, in the future, if you could give like a message for bi plus people, both research and academics, like, what would you say it's one of the most urgent thing to talk about? I know it's terrible to ask a bi plus person to choose something. I would not say just one, but if you could say at least three from the list of 12.
Jace, you pick three and then I'll pick three.
Oh, I have to go first?
Yeah.
I really enjoy reading about bi plus and religion. That intersection is probably one of my favorites, I will say. I think I do struggle with the current research that is out there because I haven't seen myself reflected in that research, I will admit. As someone who left Christianity and found her way back to organized religion through a Unitarian Universalist church, and that having be a very beautiful experience, had you asked me, I want to say like a year ago, if I would get married in a church, I would have told you, hell no, that is ridiculous. And I did. It was a gorgeous church, and I got married there. And I would like to see more of that in the literature. I'm trying to find my slide just because I don't remember everything. Oh, and definitely bi plus and class, economic and classism. I don't think we read enough about that. Like, there are a few papers. There's the paper Deconstructing Biphobia by Miguel Obrador Campos, which I love and adore. And if somebody knows him personally, can somebody please send me that email? Those are the two people we really need to hear about, Miguel and
Please
Alex
write the name
Toft.
of the paper in the chat. That would be great, so we can add it to the
I will, absolutely.
list. Thanks.
But economic class is something that is not covered as much, that I think we need a lot more information on. How a bi plus revolution is also the class revolution. And I think that those are important.
Yeah.
I'll stop at two.
I think those are like two really big ones, and also our episode about the intersection of bi-plusness and class is perhaps my favorite episode we've ever done. And the comments we got under this is like, I've never heard anybody talk about this. I've never heard anybody talk about this. I'm like, we should be talking about it. So I think bi-plus and the intersection with class and poverty, and also uh, the intersection between class and, or not class, bi-plusness and community. I would really want people to realize that being in community makes you resilient in the face of adversity, and that is incredibly needed right now. So those are my like two big ones.
Thank you. Oh yeah. Oh, thanks, Jace. Yes, you were talking about Miguel's work. That's of course that center. Well, I think that's been a great discussion and a good photograph of what the Bisexual Killjoy podcast has been doing, what they're going to do in the future. So thank you so much for our presenters for being here. We look forward to hear literally and figurative from you for the next season and the 6 unpublished episodes. And thanks again for being here, and for everyone, of course, get in touch, build some memes out of our discussion. And as you've heard, there's a lot of things to talk about. So chop chop.